Beautiful, huh? Yeah. So, 2009, a year where together we get to explore the overall theme this year of celebrating spiritual community. And for our newcomers today, I'm the assistant minister, Joyce Duffala. Our senior minister is on vacation. He's in Thailand, and of course we can follow his doings on his blog. Some interesting stuff there. We are here in January exploring the theme of going back to the basics, which is a chance to reconsider and remember and re-explore the basic teachings that are found in science of mind centers and religious science churches throughout the world. So in January here, we are looking at the nature of divine reality. And the last time you and I were together was the first week in January, where we looked at the thing itself, also known as God. And today we're looking at what it does. What it does. Here we are in the third week of January, and we have already had two very important people to us make their transition. Linda Webke-Cobb, our former music director and now beloved choir member, Garen. And also, many of you may have known David Engel. He made his transition a couple of days before Linda did. He was well known among us, and even more so in the New Thought community in Sonoma County. And you may have known other people who recently have made their transition from this plane to another. And you know, truthfully, if we're honest with each other, it's a mystery to us. Even though our philosophy suggests that we may have been there before, our philosophy tells us that we are eternal beings, deathless and birthless, who are always moving from life to life, expanding in greater good. But still, personally, I don't remember a time when I wasn't here. And frankly, I can barely remember most of my time here. And yet, you know, there are some things that we as religious scientists can be sure of, because we believe that God is all there is. We were looking at this the first week. Everything is God. Because we believe that, it means that everywhere you and I go, God is. It means that we can't go someplace where God is not. It means that right where Linda and Garen and the others who have made their transition are right now, they are as fully in the presence of God as they always have been. A second thing we know as religious scientists is that God's nature is love. We were also looking at this the first week. God is love. And that means that for you and for me and for Linda and Garen and for everyone, every moment of our eternal lives, we are being held in love, and the possibility of good is always available to us, no matter where we are. Something else we know as religious scientists, last week Dennis Merritt Jones really made a point of reminding us that you and I are expressions of God. Each of us, Linda, Garen, you and me, we are the one expressing itself. And what this means is that we are spiritual beings who are moving through our eternal lives on our perfect, individually, self-selected, custom-designed, perfect paths of revealing more good and knowing more God. And what that means is that wherever we are on this plane or someplace else, and how we get from one place to another, it means that nothing has ever gone wrong. Nothing has ever gone wrong. We are always held in love on our perfect path of knowing more God and expressing more good. In fact, that's probably a pretty good affirmation for us today. I am always held in love on my perfect path of knowing more God and experiencing more good. So I invite you to let that settle in. Perhaps you would like to repeat it after me. I'm always held in love on my perfect path of knowing more God and experiencing more good. I am always held in love on my perfect path of knowing more God and experiencing more good. So if we put the whole thing together one last time, I am always held in love on my perfect path of knowing more God and experiencing more good. You see, in that affirmation is the idea that the more we know of God, the more good we'll experience. But of course, because God is infinite, we're never going to know it all. So there's always going to be something that is mysterious to us. And yet, in putting together the science of mind philosophy, Ernest Holmes went a long way to taking the mysterious and making it understandable to us. He went a long way to taking what is considered supernatural and explaining it in such a way that it becomes natural for us. He went a long way in helping us understand that behind all the changes of our lives, the comings and goings of people, the ups and downs of our finances, the ins and outs of everything that's going on, behind all that change, there is a changeless thing. And we can know some things about it, both by our own direct experience of it, and also by our study of reading about other people's throughout history, about their direct experience of it. This philosophy he put together, he referred to as the science of mind and spirit, and usually you just hear it called the science of mind. It's a funny kind of title, isn't it? I think if we wanted to rename it in our own heads, we could call it something like spiritual technology. How's that sound? Or we could call it practical mysticism. Or we could think of it as the science of my own mind and spirit. Because you see, within all those titles is within what he did for us. He gave us a technology so that not only do we have more of an understanding of what's going on the unseen side of life and how we can understand it, but also he gave us some very practical guidance about how we can align ourselves with it and how we can use it. Last time when we were considering the basics of our philosophy, the first week I was with you, we turned to that summary statement he often used. There is a power for good in the universe there is a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. So today, as we put our attention on what it does, what God does, we're putting our attention on that power part, that doing part of God. We've already been touching on what God is. We know its nature is love. That's its being essence. We know that it is first cause, bringing everything into existence. But how does it do that? As we look at this beautiful world of ours and that extensive, infinite universe that we can glimpse at night, and we know that is the body of God, the question comes up, how does the unseen first cause make it all happen? Do you remember how really mysterious things were when you were a kid? Maybe you, like me, looking at the television, wondered how those little people got in there and what they ate when I wasn't looking? Or maybe, like me, you were mystified why some balloons floated and some just thudded to the ground. Or maybe you were envious and wondered why birds could fly, but I couldn't, you couldn't. And then as we grew in our understanding of the world, we found that there actually are explanations for these things. There actually are principles. There actually are laws that make these things so. And they became less mysterious for us. And so it is that Ernest Holmes and others like him have helped take our human species out of the mystery of some supernatural, mysterious, arbitrary personality of a God who does odd things, and moved our understanding over to a new thought of a loving and a neutral presence that functions predictably according to its own laws and principles. Here's how Ernest Holmes liked to explain it. One day he was teaching and he drew a big circle and he said, I'm using a circle here because, as we've been saying, everything is God. There's nothing outside of God. And yet, there are some different aspects of God that we can think about, because there is the unseen side of life and there is the seen side of life. And so there is behind me a very familiar looking symbol, and also we'll have it up on the wall. He took this circle and he divided it into 3 parts. And he said, well, the top there, that is the thought of God. That is God knowing itself. That's the knowing part of God. That's the spirit of God. And here we've got the world that we see, the world of form, the world of what looks like solid things to us. And how does the thought become form? Well, he said, it moves from thought into form through this middle bit here. Now, that middle bit is very important, because that is the doing part of God. That is the power of God. That is that which makes things happen, that middle part. That's the creative medium of God. And he used to like to explain it quite simply. He said, it's like this top part is a seed, and when it's planted in the soil, it produces a plant. And so it is that the thought of God going into this creative medium will bring something into existence. We know that from reading Genesis, you know? God said, let there be light, and there was light. It's this same idea that God's thought makes something happen by moving this creative medium. He also referred to this part as the servant of spirit, because it does anything it's told to do. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody in your life that is like that? Perhaps you might have gotten married hoping that that would be true. But that's what this creative medium does. It will do anything it's told to do. It doesn't make any choices, it's just a doer. It takes orders and it does it. No judgments, no arguing, it does what it's told. It's kind of like putting a CD in a CD player, you know? If you put a piece of rap music into that CD player, you're going to hear rap music. If you put in classical music, you're going to hear classical sounds coming out of your CD player. The CD player isn't commenting on your choices of music. It's not choosing for you. It's not spitting out some CDs and only playing others. And when Holmes used the metaphor of the soil, he said, you know, if you plant a tomato seed, you get a tomato. If you plant a petunia seed, you get a petunia. That soil doesn't do any choosing. It's totally neutral. It's a blind force that is automatic. And because this creative medium has to respond automatically, he called it the law. And he wrote this: we should think of God as the great spirit whose sole impulse is love, freely giving of himself to all who ask and refusing none, watching over, caring for, and loving all alike. While all is love, yet, in order that things may not be chaotic, all is governed by law. So you see, this middle bit here is God's way of expressing love to us. It's God's method of operation. He also wrote, we live in a universe of spirit and of law. From the one we are to draw inspiration, from the other we are to utilize power. Each is a complement to the other, and both are necessary to existence. So you see, anything that has to do with thought or choice or spontaneity is in this top part here, but once that thought goes into the creative medium, it's going to automatically produce that thought. That middle section is neutral, responding to all alike. No respecter of persons, he said. It treats all equally. So perhaps you're beginning to pick up that this is not just about the creative process of God. Remember, we are expressions of God. We are made in the image and likeness of God. So what we're talking about here is that our thought also sets this law into motion, and it brings about results and experiences in our lives. Well, certainly we can tell from our experience that not every thought shows up in form. There's many a time I've thought, gee, I'd like an ice cream soda, and it just didn't appear. But what we can say is that where we put a lot of our mental attention and feeling, there's going to be a tendency to set that law in motion to get a similar thing to show up in our lives. Why? Because this law is always responding to us. It's always working. 24/7, 365, always working. Just like gravity, you know, there's not some places where gravity is working and sometimes it's working and other places, other times it doesn't work. It's always working. In fact, there's a story about Holmes giving a lecture at a Silmar to a gathering of people, and he said to them, I was walking around the grounds, and with every step I took, I said, gravity, hold me down. Gravity, hold me down. Gravity, hold me down. And he said, you know what? It worked. But it was a lot of work. And also the point he was making was that it wasn't necessary. That gravity works for us, whether we ask it to or not. And so it is with this neutral, automatic law of God. It works for us. We don't have to ask it to do that. It's always responding to whatever we're saying and whatever we're thinking. We're going to have a chance next week with Reverend Kim to consider more about how to use it. But in our time today, I think it's important that we appreciate what good news this is. That there is this law, this servant that's available to us. Because you see, it means if there's something in our lives that we don't like, we can change it. If there's something in our lives that seems to be making us feel stuck, it can change. There's a beautiful phrase in the book of Revelation. And let him that is athirst come, and whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. That's what we're talking about. We don't have to be victims of circumstances. We can work with this water of life, this creative medium, this automatic law. It's available to everybody, everywhere. We can work with it to help bring about what we desire. Isn't this good news? You know, for me, it's up there, I think, with when I discovered Weight Watchers. Because there I was, overweight, and it was a mystery to me. I didn't know how to lose weight. I thought it was genetic or something. You know, I'd see skinny people and I'd envy them, and I'd think, lucky them. And then I met this system that was kind of mathematical and kind of scientific. It said, well, you know, different foods have different point values, numerical point values. And if you eat 25 points of food a day, you are going to lose weight. And it was true. The scale proved it. And if you let it slip a little bit, you're not going to lose weight. In fact, if you let it slip a lot, you're actually going to gain weight. It was a very neutral process. It just responded to what I did. But you see, it was great because now I knew how to lose weight. And now I understood that if I was gaining weight, why it was happening and what I could do about it. Because you see, now I had an understandable and practical system based on a natural law that I could use to get my desired result. And that's what is important about our understanding divine law that works automatically and neutrally. It doesn't argue, it doesn't judge, it just gives me back what I put in, like that soil or like that CD player. You know, in this divine system, there is, of course, not only law, but there is the love of God. In fact, the law is the way that this ultimate love of the universe gives us exactly what we ask for. Throughout his writings, Holmes encourages us to both commune with the presence of love and to work with the law. So as we conclude together today, why don't we take a few moments just to do just that? I invite you to turn within to that loving presence that's always available to you.
We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause.
This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation.
The universe is the body of God.
We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in humankind and that all people are incarnations of one Spirit.
We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding.
We believe that the kingdom of heaven is within, and that we experience this kingdom to the degree that we become conscious of it.
We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all.
We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God.
We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence.
We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our own intuitive and spiritual nature, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God.
We believe that we are surrounded by the creative mind of God, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it.
We believe in healing through the power of this mind.
We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind.
We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all.
We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that all life is God.